We're looking at a model answer for Mrs. Birling, and now I'm going to model how you would write a paragraph on structure. Now remember, you want, in a response, the heading, the title of the question, a big paragraph on language of your choice, a nice solid one on structure, and this one is optional, this additional paragraph. You could do language or structure in there, but you absolutely need this one. That's key. Even though it's short, the judgment lifts the mark because they're asking you how the writer presents it, and you've got to judge it right there. You've got to judge the learning. So we've looked at, there you go, we've done this part here, which is the language, and we used our metaphor of a human brick wall. Now we're across, and we are, there you go, structurally. Now again, look at the colors. The black bold, that's the method, and you only need two. This is not about method spotting now. You don't just list all the methods because that gets you very little marks. That's very simple in terms of identifying them. You're looking for the higher skills, which is inference. Okay, so all of these yellows here are my sentence starters that lead into me explaining, which is where my inference is. And remember, inference is making guesses as to why the characters are doing what they're doing. Making guesses as to why the decisions are the decisions they are. Okay, so let's read it. Oh wait, one more. The purple. The purple is where I'm pushing my mark up because these are my own metaphors or similes, and I'm doing that to demonstrate that I understand it. Notice how much green I have. The green are the quotes, and then notice the brown. The brown is simply the reference to the historical context. Nowhere do I have a sentence saying, during Edwardian times, ... What I do is I melt the historical context into the character to show how it completely defines how their existence will be. So, structurally, it is interesting how the title of the play is An Inspector Calls. Priestley plants the idea in the reader's head that one singular person has the power to not only impact society for good, but to literally save those who are suffering by simply challenging the status quo. When the lone voice of the inspector challenges Mrs. Birling with repeated questions like why, her brick wall response literally does not move. She lays blame at everyone's door except her own. During her denial, Priestley paints her into a corner to force a confession or to force some form of apology. And yet, when Mrs. Birling is given a chance to apologize for killing her grandchild, she does not. Instead, she tells Eric, I did not understand. At no point does she become distraught about the dead grandchild. At no point does she grieve or crumple. She makes an excuse instead which, because she is upper class, seems to absolve her of all guilt and responsibility. The reader will also know that she is lying. Mrs. Birling knows all about girls of that class. Her wealth keeps her conveniently apart from brutal reality, like she lives in a bubble far removed. When Priestley uses the inspector to burst that bubble and force her to own up, the reader realizes that she is very juvenile in her stubborn denial of basic facts. Sheila, in contrast to her mother, is shown to be far superior to her mother in every way. She demonstrates normal human emotions like shock, shame, regret, remorse, repentance, and acceptance of blame. Whilst her parents find these qualities to be weak, Priestley clearly shows how Sheila is a better and more moral human in every way. The reader is left in no doubt that Mrs. Birling's character is wholly corrupt and morally bankrupt. Priestley is clearly confronting the upper class who hold positions of power like she does and challenging them to reflect on their own moral compass and make corrections before they too are exposed as frauds. Right, now think to yourself, what did you like? What didn't you like? What do you want to delete? Here's a nice word you may not know. If you absolve somebody, you completely forgive them. You wipe the slate clean. And she does that for herself by just pretending it's not true, that it didn't happen. She just decides that it's not real. And that's, of course, not responsible at all. I've left out a word here, in every way. See, typing quickly. The status quo, do you remember what that is? That was further up. There you go, the status quo. Status quo means as things are right now. So the poor are dismissed and everyone who has money behaves the same way because that is what's expected of them. That is standard, typical behavior. The problem is it's damaging. It's dangerous. Now, notice how I have not used one very long single quote. Do you know why that is? It's hard to analyze. And the other thing about it is I'm probably only going to sum up the quote instead of picking apart the layers of meaning. And it's much easier to analyze quotes when they're shorter and they link together. So by embedding them in the criticism in my head, I'm saying what I want to say about Mrs. Birling, and then I'm inserting the quotes that will support Mrs. Birling's criticism. It's all of that evidence. And notice how I contrast Mrs. Birling to Sheila. So even though the question is about Mrs. Birling, the story isn't only about her. So I can contrast her to anyone if it's relevant to the thing I'm saying.